What is going on, YouTube people? Today, just a little bit of a chit chat, more like a podcast style episode. So I just got the logo up on the screen, but you could just sit back, relax, and listen. What we're going to discuss today is Pokemon / TCG, but let's be honest, we're mostly talking about Pokemon here. Is taking over local card shows. Now, for longtime viewers of my content over on the main channel, you kind of know this little bit of backstory already. For you new folks over here, you might not. So, I live in Northeast Ohio, if you can't tell by the logo. We are blessed with a ton of local shows. Like 50 to 100 table shows happen all over the place. I had one on Saturday that was an 80 table show. I had one on Sunday that was like a 60 table show. I'm driving to Indiana next weekend to ship Shawana to a 450 table show. The following day, there's one 30 minutes from my house that is a couple hundred table show. So I am at a lot of small to medium-sized card shows on the regular. And I've noticed this for a while, but it has really picked up steam since Christmas. And that is the Pokemon takeover. You are seeing a couple different things. More straight Pokemon tables, especially the show that I was at on Saturday. The show that I was at on Saturday in Broadview Heights, Ohio, had more just straight up Pokemon dealers than I have seen at that show ever. I don't go to that one a ton, but I've been to the last couple. There was probably at least, I'm going to say, a quarter of the room to maybe a third was 100% straight TCG dealers. The other thing that you're seeing, in addition to the influx of Pokemon only dealers, you are seeing an influx of people that never messed with Pokemon singles, like true blue sports card dealers, are now getting into Pokemon singles. I am seeing them show up in table showcases more often. I am seeing them being asked for when you're walking around. If you're walking a card show and you have your case in your hand, a lot of dealers will ask you, hey, you selling? What do you got? Baseball, football? Do you have any Pokemon? Do you have any Pokemon? You got any Pikachus? Any Charizards? What do you got? So you're seeing a lot more questions around that sort of stuff. And just people that have never touched Pokemon singles now wanting them in their showcase. Because here's the thing, it doesn't take rocket science to figure out when you're set up at the sports card show and your table is, let's just call it like moderately busy. You have a person walking up, maybe you got a little bit of, you got some action going on. And then you look down the aisleway and you're like, what the hell is going on down there? They're 5 deep at that table. There's like 4 people in line just waiting to flip through a binder. What is you can't even get near that table. What is going on? Are they giving things away? And then you walk down there and it's all Pokemon. Singles, wax, retail stuff, booster boxes, the whole 9 yards. And the dealers are looking around going, well, I want a piece of that action. I guess I got to get some Pokemon in my case. And I've talked about this a ton. The appeal of the Pokemon is, it's such a broad base because you hit people my age that collected it as a kid, or maybe they're new into it now, like myself on the single side, but been in it for a while on the sealed side. Kids, there's a billion kids at Pokemon tables. And something you don't ever see, women, girls. And like actual women, like full grown women. I know, crazy. Which you rarely see women in the sports card space. There's definitely a few, some very successful ones, in fact, but not to the degree that you see it on the Pokemon side of things. Guess what that means? You're marketing to a much wider audience. That means more people interacting with your table because you have the inventory that they want. That's good for business. And that's what people are seeing, and they're starting to adapt. And it is taking over shows. taking over shows. I don't know if we're at the point yet where it almost needs to be like separate Pokemon only shows, or if people like the mix. I did hear walking around the Broadview show yesterday, it was interesting to hear. I've talked about this. I like to, when I go to shows, I almost just like to eavesdrop in on other people's conversations. Like, what are people talking about that are walking around the show? What are people talking about that are interacting with dealers? Because that's honestly sometimes where you get the best vibe of what is going on in an individual show. Is just sitting back and not saying a word, just standing at a table. Maybe you're just looking at a showcase, and at the same time you're listening into whatever is going on either side of you. And there was definitely a chatter at that Saturday show about, wow, there's a lot of Pokemon in this room. What is up with this? Like, you could always, like, the old school people that don't know what even a Pikachu even is. And, you know, people go, hey, man, that's where all the money is. This thing's hot as hell right now. Like, you know, and trying to explain it to people. But it is infecting what would traditionally be a sports card show. You know, you'd maybe have like the one vendor that specialized in Pokemon, maybe two. Now it's 20. And it is taking over. Their tables are slammed. And as a show promoter, you know, if you're a show promoter, what are you going to do? Are you going to say, nope, sorry, we don't want you setting up here with Pokemon, and then all of a sudden your crowd's way less and there's less activity in the room? Or do you want to look around and just see a packed room? Most show promoters are going to lean that way. That being said, I think it's time for smaller non-sports card shows to pop up. You know, like you have your traditional 50 table card show at the church or the VFW or whatever. I think it's time for TCG only versions of those. Now, can they last? I don't know. Obviously, collecticons are extremely popular. I'm not talking about like the mega shows with 5,000 you know, not 5,000, but like, you know, 500-600 tables at a huge event center. I'm talking about a 60 table show at your local VFW or the church or the Holiday Inn Express. That's what I'm talking about. Is it time for things like that to ramp up and take over? Not take over, but to live side by side with a card show, because if you're a Pokemon specific dealer, you don't really have a lot of avenues. There isn't that type of small local regional show that you could go set up at. You have to rely on sports card shows. And maybe it's all perfectly fine. Maybe those two sides can live happily together. But I think it would be nice to see a TCG only or non-sport only card show where shows start to pop up. I think that's an untapped market for somebody out there. So, curious for your thoughts and comments. What are you seeing if you attend shows? Do you have any like TCG specific local shows in your area, or is it just the big massive collecticons when they come to town? That's all I got for you, boys and girls. Catch you on the next one. Peace.